Venture Site Contest 2, which I judged last year, is going again. This is the first batch of fairly brief reviews of the first 6 of these I've read. These are just the first 6 alphabetically in the Google Drive. There are 30 entries, and so there'll be a slightly more sort of focused summarization style review probably. We'll see how we go, but just because there's a lot. So I've got 6 up here today. The first thing to say actually is just none of these were bad, and that sounds like faint praise. It's not. It's nice to read stuff that's not terrible. It's the same last time. Nothing was absolutely terrible. 1 or 2 of them I didn't think were great, but like they're all fine. And what this teaches me is that we accept far too much slop that people pay money for as well on drive-thru and elsewhere, because you just get people, making pretty normal adventure sites, and they turn out to be much better than stuff people pay for. It's just out there. You could go and find it. This is run by Coldlight Press, by the way. Ben Gibson of Coldlight Press, Commodore. So FA1, The Copper Circle by A.M. Jackson, aka Bucolian. This is low level, 1st to 2nd. This is a big copper tube, basically. It's essentially, there's the thing I don't think, by the way, Bucolian, you need to worry about in a non-commercial activity using the name tensor or tensor's floating disk. But yeah, Thenser and his mysterious circular plane of null gravity is being explained here, like not explained literally, but like as in, this is the wizard who made it. It's a cool kind of, especially if you're running Greyhawk, but even if you're not, like, oh look, there's this cool location that you know where this is, where this comes from. And his point is, he explains at the end, how do you get those spells which are lowish level but should definitely be found in play? Things like floating disc. He gives which is a good example. Even up to 3rd level, you've got stuff like Tiny Hut or whatever else. Nistel's Magical Aura is the other one he gives as an example. Yeah. So this one is, it's got a very distinctive. One thing I'll say, all of these, I think, in literally all of them, there was kind of some minor typographical error or whatever. I'm not going to pick up on that. I'll make a brief comment on the map. But for adventure sites, which are usually on the smaller side, even if they have 20 rooms, they're usually simpler rooms than if there is a 20-room detailed dungeon. I won't comment too much unless there's a major thing I want to say. This one is an adventure location where you'll go in. It's landed. There's pygmies who are looking for Thenser. They've got his copper circle thing. You can interact with it in different ways. It's made clear. There's other adventurers there or have been there. Some of them are dead. There's a whole statue puzzle where, kind of anyway, where different statues have, different things missing. This is the statue as it should look like. There's ways of flying it around. There's a bunch of distinctive stuff here, isn't there? Just because you're like, oh wow, the treasure. By the way, the layout and clarity, I like this. This is kind of a good 2-column format. But yeah, you've got plenty of treasure. You can see most of this bolded stuff is treasure. You can meet people like a bronze dragon who's helping the pygmies to try to clear out some manes. But she'll accept your help and she'll give you a rod of the mage disc, so 30 charges of tensors. It's fun. There's lots of bits and pieces. I don't think it necessarily, and it has psionics in it. It has a pygmy scion. That's fun. I don't know that it necessarily is totally coherent, or everything flows into the other things. Even though there's lots of connections between rooms, there's really good discipline about being like, look, loads of stuff here is connected. This, by the way, there's the referee map. There's a VTT map, which is very kind. You can see here, there's discs you can go and get, which if you have the rod, you can control as well without casting. Lots of different rooms. There's, as I say, there's decent treasure. There are spell books. There's monsters. I mean, I'd say things like giant ants and manes are possibly challenging for 1st level characters, if we're honest. Depending on the version of the manes you're using anyway. I take it this is AD&D 1E, yeah. But, you can sort that. And the treasure is good for those. for a low-level party, there's some setup stuff there, like there's a corpse and he's got scale mail, bastard sword, 10 plus 1 arrows, potion of heroism. You can, if you get rid of the monos, you can get a rod of the mage disc. If you go and get rid of the monos, you get a bunch of normal treasure plus a luck stone. Can only be used for identify spells, so it can't be used. There is another thing, isn't there? I don't remember what it can be used for. Yes. You can see, the sort of spell jamming elements here of the Navigator's Throne. There's distinctive stuff. There's some sense that it's interactive and connected, but perhaps without the a certain inner life, a certain compelling, like, this is the stuff people are going to come away remembering. These are the characters. But yeah, I think very functional, very slightly challenging for Sword of Gems, by the way. I will actually steal this, Bucolian. Absolutely a great idea. The idea that if you put a gem in it, you get the power in some way from the DMG magic gem list. It's a way of using stuff where it's like, this is this optional side idea, and turning it into a thing in the game, which is good. The rumours are probably also a bit redundant, I guess. Not redundant, but rather weak. There is a description about the how to try to sort out the statue puzzle as well. So it's well laid out, it's clear, it's fun. Foggy Bottom, Fog Valley Retreat this is by Ben Gibson himself. There's the map. It's a Dyson map. I think it's the suggestion here is that maybe it's a custom one. You can tell me in the comments, Ben. I really enjoyed this one. This might be my pick of these first 6, all of which are good, as I say. Basically to the point I'm thinking about using it, which is there's so much material out there in the world, and I'm happy to make up stuff on the spot. But here, there's like an evil elf god or something, maybe evil, who has a temple which is for elves to go to, to retreat to find sanctuary. But it's really for like elf villains to go to and find sanctuary. You might go yourself, or because you've got an enemy there, or you might go after Fingal the Vile, who is the default. There's a cockatrice and there's spectres and stuff. It's 5th to 7th. It's in solid in the mid-level kind of core play zone for AD&D, like where a lot of the best stuff happens. Again, pretty clear stuff to when we talk about layout. Pretty clear stuff here. Easy to read without being flashy, without descending into self-parody of 1 trillion bullet points or whatever. There is like here's the big bad of it. If you kill Fingal or whatever, is you do have a 13 HD magic resistance, 65%, +2 or better weapon needed to hit, cast spells, angel statue that comes to life. So that's tough. You're going to have to work that one out, aren't you? There's loads of bloodthorns around. There's lots of goons. By the way, if you're not familiar, the Adventure Site contest, the principle is it's essentially 4 pages, which is intro, 2 pages of key, map. That's hence the length. Cover and back cover are optional and additional. The treasure here, there's essentially treasure in every room. Cockatrice eggs, lifting them requires a save, and if dropped or kept away from heat for longer than half an hour, the egg hatches into a little chickatwice, as 1 HP cockatrice. Good gag. There's dancing spectres. Some of this is challenging, therefore, like 16 spectres who, if you don't work out that you need to dance with them to get through, just attack you. Whew. That's harsh. There's some fun stuff like, can you get a £400 chandelier home that's worth 13,750 gold pieces? You shouldn't. You probably shouldn't try. Unless maybe you're going to got all those different floating discs and you've then melded them together. There is some Tengwa. I think the thing here that sold it to me was one of the stuff, like I really specifically liked the kinds of treasure. I have tastes of particular kinds, and that's stuff I liked. I liked, and as much as I think maybe even for 7th level you're starting to hit them where it hurts if you chase them down with this avatar of the guide, I do think the challenge there is stiff but reasonable, like the Spectres. It's stuff that a 7th level party who's organically got to 5th level even should know a few things about this game and not be like, oh, I guess we'll just fight some Spectres and it'll be okay. 16 of them, there's 7 of us. I think it's something where hopefully you've got skilled players coming in and therefore the challenges seem fine. It's generous, there's loads of stuff. 650 books worth 30,000 gold total if handled gently. And that's the kind of thing that might be more attractive, of course, because you can take proportionally. You can have bearers carry them. Stuff can get destroyed there as well. Are you assaulting the whole place, in which case, or are you trying to steal stuff, or what are you trying to do? Why are you there? Oh, and that means it's easily slottable in by a DM as any kind of location, rather than the more specific, it's just a dungeon or it's a weird random encounter. It's like, no, here's a thing you can do different things with. And there is an internal life, even though it's not super exciting. By that I mean there's not loads of kind of crazy stuff. It all makes sense and it all feels like, yes, this is what they would be doing, this works. And yeah, you've got a boss you can go and fight who's got a bunch of stuff on it. He is Elf Cleric level 7, so he is pretty nasty. 30 HP with AC 1. He's got plate +1 though, so that you've got again. I mean, at this point, plate +1 might be something you haven't got, but not all of this is going to blow away the fighters. But a plate +1 +2 heavy flail and a +1 staff. There's stuff there for everyone. So yeah, that was very strong. Owlbear Hill by Scott M, who I think, Scott, you entered the last contest, didn't you? And I think I liked your entry. Here, let's just skip to the map to clarify. Essentially, in the cellars here, there's good multi-level maps, like multi-perspective maps, to make it really clear what's going on, different levels of the actual dungeon and cellars, and then the overview, and then a side view. The cellars, there's some knolls in, there's the ruins above there, and then in the dungeons, there is an essentially in the dungeons there is an alchemist who is making owlbears. Where do owlbears come from, and where do porcupanthers and wolf snakes and scorpions and boarhawks come from? This is great. Like, it's very imaginative. That stuff's very memorable, I think. It is literally a monster hotel in almost a literal sense, isn't it? Certainly. Oh, by the way, the warlock's called Zero, or alchemist is called Zerod Zorex, who I think is a joke that's a bit on the nose for someone who's miscopying animals, or miscopying anything, indeed. Yeah, I'd say it's not like there's an enormous amount of incredible variety that's just, I've never come across the likes before. There's a Monster Zoo-ish thing with some weird tech you can poke, and then above that, and this is what you may go into first, or probably will go into first, though not necessarily, because I think you can, you can go in via a tunnel as well. Looping, multiple entrances. You can see, by the way, the map here is highly loopable, particularly the upper dungeon. The lower dungeon less so, to be fair. But that core area and the cellars where the gnolls live, heavily looped. But yeah, you can see, you've got an upper area with some gnolls in them. It's a humanoid tribal area. This is very much a dungeon rather than an adventure site, I'd say. The size of it, and compared to Foggy Bottom Retreat, which technically has, it's got over 20 rooms, but it's a detailed adventure site rather than a kind of full-blown campaign dungeon. The Copper Circle is, again, it's got 12 rooms. It's not even that big comparatively. There's lots going on in those 12 rooms. Whereas Owlbear Hill is this is a full-on, probably multi-session dungeon, and that's just laid out in a very disciplined manner. This is Gygaxian in those terms. It's not quite as clear if we're going to fiddle with that stuff as the other two that we've seen so far. But yeah, again, very strong entry. Tristan Shouty has Crimson Garden of the Crocodile Spirits. Map is a separate PDF in my version. I think keeping it very simple for the purpose of, look, this is what it looks like. I think for something this length, I'd be happier with just a single PDF, so I'm not having to open multiple files and stress out my poor, very old computer. Here it is an alchemist's greenhouse, which has loads of valuable herbs that have grown, feral, as it were, in there, but is also haunted by the spirits of the dead crocodiles he had got in as guards. Atmospherically, in terms of what's in there, this is very strong. And there's just always treasure, and the treasure is always at least good, in terms of its useful stuff, like a bunch of coins and a garnet. That's easy to record. Or cool, longevity and healing. That's an interesting combination of potions to find. Or there's a couple of rooms, the greenhouse themselves with these plants, but you've got to replant the plants or they'll die. Okay, short sword it's a +2 conditional. That's great, and so on. And you get the idea. I think the location, and it very much is a site again rather than a dungeon. Unlike Alber Hill, it's much more what I'm expecting, is strong. I think the ghost crocodiles, though, there's they've got a nasty profile. So just as a different twisty encounter, they're good. I'm not sure I really buy them beyond that. And there's ghouls and skeletons and wights. It's not excitingly populated beyond the ghost crocs, who are also a bit goofy. But I think as a coherent and compelling location, the greenhouse itself is very, very good. I liked that side of it. The Arena Aemilia is the one of these 6 which is an adventure site in one sense and not in another. It could just be a coliseum you go to. It's somewhere in the countryside. It's an amphitheatre. It has some attached small buildings. It gives you a good list of this is the household. These are the concubines, male and female, who are also hireable. Not that I really need that in my games. There's 12 gladiators who are. There is a confusing thing here where it's half implied, maybe, that this is like professional wrestling gladiators. I feel like it's being softly implied. Arena Aemilia is by Z, character levels 4 to 6, silver standard. But also, it seems like it's legit. It's shoot as well. There's also the tenants, which is Facunda, Gaius, Publia, Mammacus, and Aulus. And it gives you just a key of the 35 locations, but this is not really a dungeon, as I say. It could be used as a dungeon in the sense that anything can be, can't it? Anything set like that. But it's really a thing where you're messing around with the factions of the gladiators, or it's a location you stop along the way, or maybe something else happens there. So what is strong about it is the sense. I don't know if it doesn't have as much internal reality as, say, even the Crocodiles one. As much as I say I'm not convinced by the monsters, the actual location does. Again, I think Foggy Bottom, Foggy. I'm being screwed over by George Clooney, aren't I? Foggy Valley Retreat. I'm not sure if it has quite as much internal life there, despite the fact it is a detailed and full description of this kind of settlement on the road between two Roman-like towns or cities. I think it's really usable and really dunkable into a world if you can make that setting element fit. I think the one caveat to this, other than is it quite as compelling for me personally? is just that the adventurability of it is something that is in the eye of the beholder slash the pen of the DM. You know, there's encounters that are given as examples. There's an advert given, which is fun. You could go and see stuff, but you're going to have to work out how it's important and how to get the characters, the PCs, to care about these like factions of gladiators in their different stables. Finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, Scarborough Shire, levels 5-7 by Nick Roman. So there's some hooks on this. I'd say layout-wise, I did find this one. There's the map at the end, which I had to go back over, but it's perfectly reasonable as far as it goes. Yeah, it's, you know, obviously this is one that has, in some ways, it has some more locations than some, more detailed locations than some. I think it technically has 13 locations, but they are detailed, and some of them are larger areas than a dungeon room. They are like areas in a wilderness map. There's a really micro wildernessy element going on here. You know, if we just, you can see here is a location on the way to the White Glass Dunes, the City of Spires. Here's another road, Tailbone Mountains, Desolation and Mornograx, the Bright Star Republic, etc. And, you know, that goes off to A5. So you've got some external locations, and then if you go under the Halfling compound itself, here's B, and these are the internal locations, the subterranean locations. And basically, these are evil Halfling bandits who there is a. Makes me think of all things, a bit like how the Copper Circlet feels Lamentations-y, and much lighter fare than Lamentations, but Lamentations-y or Jeff Reentz. This one has just a touch of Chris Kutelik, I think, as well. You know, and a few other. I can think of a few other OSR authors. Like, there's these hill houses, and they're all doing Potemkin fantasy of Halfling fantasy life, family life, with stomach stuffing meals, endlessly varying folk dances, etc. But actually, they're bandits, and it turns out the patriarch is possessed by a devil. Now, he's dead. He's dying, he's old, he tried to get eternal life, and he's been taken over by a devil. So, and there's some stuff like there's these guardians, there's Wish Twister, is he a gnome illusionist, I think? He might be a halfling illusionist, I don't know. There's the family quarters with different places, Philippia, Bertold, and Gulliver. And yeah, you can see, you know, they've got their alignments and stuff, so it gives you some guide to dealing with them. Maybe there's a bit of a thing. Oh, you can go into the Underdark from here, next to the Underdark map of D1 to 3. There's a Hobgoblin warband nearby, obviously friends with the Scarboroughs. Yeah, you know, maybe you need to put it in with Lipley's Tavern, and he's a nice local halfling. He's not a fake, from last time by Grutzy, my sworn enemy. But yeah, here I think there's a lot to like in this. Is it as immediately usable as some of the others, though? It requires a setting where you're willing to have like a bunch of halflings in hill houses, but also they're all fakes, and there's a devil worshipping patriarch. It has a strong flavour, which makes it less droppable than some things. I mean, all of them do. All of them have flavour, and it has a lot more humour, which a bit of humour is the spice of life in gaming. I think a lot of humour can be a problem. The jokes come from the game itself. So yeah, I think all of these have real strengths. None of them are kind of trash, certainly, but also none of them are like, well done, you made up a location. All of them have something which I think you can sell with. Like, I think the idea of halflings in the region are covering up the real bandits. That's strong. There's a reusable location, the Arena Aemilia. That is just a place you can go that has factions in it. That's got its thing. Crimson Garden of the Ghost Crocodiles, Crocodile Spirits. That has the actual greenhouse itself, which is just such a good location. Alber Hill is an entire adventure and dungeon with multiple things going on, you know, with and all kinds of ways of approaching the problem as well. Foggy Bottom Retreat, Foggy Valley Retreat, Fog Valley Retreat it does say Foggy Retreat here, actually. That's what's getting me. Foggy Retreat is just has incredible life to it, and like Owlbear Hill actually as well, just really, and Crimson Garden, really good treasure. And Copper Circle is so memorable and interesting, then no one's going to forget the time they met the copper ship landed, and there were psychic pygmies, and just interesting encounters like the Bronze Dragon. So yeah, all of them have something. I think of this batch, as I say, I think Foggy Retreat and maybe Owlbear Hill are the most droppable into your setting. Yeah, I'll get to another 6 soon. Tell me your instant thoughts on those in the comments. Till next time.